Hello there and welcome back to Brambleberry. It is another chilly day out here at the homestead, and I'm once again a little bit limited on my time, but I'm gonna see how much further I can get this solar panel project moved along here today. Concrete's all finally set up and I got the bracing all taken off except for that one. I'm gonna leave that for now. The next step I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take one of these longer 10-foot pieces here and go up top here and level it going across and find out where I need to cut these off to make them the same height. My Ryobi batteries aren't liking this cold at all. There's just a little bitty spot in there that my saw blade won't get to, so I guess I'm gonna have to go get my hand saw and finish it off. Alright, so my way of thinking, if I leveled that off and cut those off pretty much the same, those should be exactly the same height as each other now, which I want them to be pretty close for what I'm about to do next. So what I did is I went and got a couple of these big bolts. These are 5/8 bolts and they're galvanized. And so what I'm gonna do, at least the plan is for now, is I'm going to drill a hole through the top of each of those poles, and then I'm gonna have a 2x4 sandwich on either side of it with a hole drilled through it, and this bolt's gonna go through and the nut's gonna go down the other side. I'm gonna tighten this down, these washers, and then it should hinge on the top of that post. I guess it'd be easier to see, so I guess I'll just build it and then show you. There's probably a better, easier way to do this, but this is how I'm doing it. I cut out a block up there, as you can see, and screwed it on, and I've got the center point marked in that. And I'm gonna drill my hole through there and start it into the post. And then I'm gonna take that block off and put it over there on that other post and screw it in over there, and hopefully that'll get my holes lined up pretty much in the same spot. So I'll use this basically as kind of a little jig on the other post. And I'm using a 5/8 bit for this. It's a paddle bit, because that's the size of my bolt. Almost went all the way through that. That whole time I was trying to keep the drill as level as possible, just eyeballing it. Might wallow that out just a little bit so that fits a little bit better, but I think that's gonna work. I need to cut the boards to put on either side of it. So I'm looking at my other racks here and where I ended up having to put this mounting hardware, and it looks to me like I could make this actually shorter, because all this down here is not even needed if I'm making it hinge in the middle. The issue with that is that I'm mixing some different panels in with these particular panels that I have now. They're close to the same size, but not exactly. And the holes for where you put the brackets on is a little bit different. So these are kind of a mess because they've been sitting out here under a tarp, but you can see the mounting holes for this are quite a bit further towards the edge. So I probably can make it a little bit shorter than I made those other ones, but I got to make sure I get enough to put these panels on. And I'll talk more in a different video, like when I actually hook up the panels, about mixing solar panels, which is possible, but it does have an effect on your voltage and amperage. But anyway, that's for another video. Like I said, we're on to figuring out how big these things need to be. So the other thing I gotta consider is that where these mount on the panel is right in the middle of this bracket, and the brackets extend a little bit further. So if I did it the entire length of the panel, which is basically what I did here, we'd end up with 65 inches, which I could do again, but if I can take out a little bit of weight, I want to. So I know I got to go further than this because, like I said, those are spaced further out. So I'm just kind of eyeballing here. If I go to where each one of these brackets are, these corner brackets, that's probably going to give me enough to get on those other ones. So instead of 65 inches, maybe knock off 5 inches. That's not a whole lot of difference, but it'll give me a nice round number to get my center point here. So I think I'm gonna do 60 inches, which is a 5-foot piece. And then I can drill my hole right at 30 inches, set my jig on there, drill a hole through, repeat until I get 4 of them made. 60 inches, that's what I'm going with. Now, a little suggestion here. So that's my first cut. Whenever you make a cut with the saw like that, it's probably going to be pretty close to what you measured, but it might not be exactly. Yeah, it's pretty close, depending on where your saw blade fell, like where you fell on the line. So what I like to do when I'm making several pieces that I want to be exactly the same is using this first one as a template. So instead of measuring the rest of them and cutting off of that line, I'm going to use this one. So this is going to be my template. I'll just put a T on there so I know. I'm going to take my next board, set it up here, line it up on this end, nice and flush. Get this nice and flush here on the sides, so we get a nice straight cut. And I'm going to mark this other board here. Now, that line I just did needs to be cut out. So whenever you cut, your saw blade has a little bit of width to it, depending on how thick a saw blade you had. So I have to watch my saw blade and make sure I'm cutting out that line, but not going past it this way. And if I do that, this should come out exactly the same as that board. So I'm not watching my guide here. I'm actually watching my blade as I cut. There we go. Now that should be exactly the same. And it is, it's nice and flush. So now I'll take this one and I'll mark the next one. It might be helpful, I guess, for you to actually see me cut that, what I'm talking about. So down here, this is nice and flush across. It's flush on the sides all the way up. And I'm gonna make my mark right here. All right, so watch my fingers off the trigger, by the way. Watch right down here where this blade is. See where you can see the line coming through there? I'm gonna make sure that my blade is cutting out that line. Now this whole thing, as I said, is 60 inches long. So my center point is going to be at 30 inches, which is right there. So I'm going to use my little jig here to get this centered, and I'm just going to actually eyeball this and put that line right in the middle of that hole, and then zip down these screws. I don't think it's imperative for this that it's like exactly in the center, but more so that they are all the same. So the more in the center you can get it, the better. This is the same width as this, so it's going to get it centered this way. So I just needed to get it centered that way. There you can see lines going pretty much right down the center. I'm going to get my paddle bit and drill this out. And once I get this one drilled, I'm going to just put it on the other ones and use it to drill out the other ones. That way they're all exactly the same. Technically, I guess I should have used my template board as my template, but it's okay. They're all pretty much the same because of the way I cut them earlier. Just to make sure, in case I didn't get that completely centered, that these all come out the same length when I put them up there, I'm going to mark an X on each end and make sure I put that end facing the same direction when I put all these up. Just making sure that's all flush as best I can. Make sure the X's are all on the same end. Alright, it's a moment of truth. Let's see if we can get these things to go together. I'm going to start this on the ground. Alright, where's my X? There's my X. I need my other X out that way too. Should be like this. Another washer and the nut on there. Looks like it's pretty well balanced to me. Must mean I got it in the center pretty well. This one's a little off. That could just be water weight in the wood even though doing that. It's alright. The next step for this would be to join these together. I might use a 4x4 block like that, or I guess I could use a 2x4 too. Not really sure yet how I'm going to do that, but unfortunately my time to work today is at an end and I'm freezing cold anyway, so it's all right. I need a break. But anyway, that gets you an idea of how to do the hinging part of it. Hopefully this works out. I keep saying that. I don't know. I've never tried it. So we'll just have to wait and see. And I'll see you again in the next video. Have a great day and thanks for watching. Maybe I should just make some wind power instead.